Hey everyone, welcome back to another driving review video here on the channel. Today you join me in the all-new 2025 Ford Expedition Platinum with the Performance Stealth Package in the high output version of the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. As usual, we're going to start out with my acceleration test. So we'll get to put the vehicle into sport mode, which is not so easily done in the Expedition as it's down near your left knee. And we'll go ahead, wait for traffic, and do full throttle acceleration. Oh my goodness, this thing scoots, holy smokes. So under the hood of every Expedition, you're gonna find a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, either standard output or high output. This case is the high output, is producing 440 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Now, even the standard output is rated at 400 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque on premium unleaded fuel. So yes, you will have to put premium in this vehicle to get its maximum potential in terms of performance. But overall, as you can see, there is never going to be a case where you are dissatisfied with the acceleration of the performance, at least from what I've experienced behind the wheel over the last week. Now, speaking of my experiences over the last week, this has certainly been a very interesting one. Now, I first set my eyes on this all-new Expedition at the 2025 Chicago Auto Show, just earlier this year, and immediately stepping inside, looking at the vehicle, I was, pretty shocked by the interior design, layout, the steering wheel, and I'm sure if you've seen other videos on this particular vehicle, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, we'll get into more of my in-depth thoughts a little bit later in this video, but starting out with visibility behind the wheel, it's actually okay in some regards and not so okay in others. So with the seat nearly in its lowest seating position, I'm 5'9", and looking over the front hood, the digital dashboard of the digital screen in front of me is exactly in line with the hood level. So really this screen, although it looks like it might intrude in visibility, really doesn't unless maybe you're really on the shorter side and don't actually raise the seat up. So forward visibility is pretty good. The hood slopes away it nice neatly. You have chunky A-pillars with integrated grab handles, so those are sizable, but you do have nice visibility out the side of the vehicle with the power folding and auto dimming side mirror. The mirror itself is plenty large in its actual physical dimensions. The only issue I think I have with visibility is going to be looking over your shoulders, both the left and right hand side. I have quite the blind spot here over my left shoulder with the integrated B-pillar, the grab handle, and where the actual seat is positioned in relation to the grab handle itself. But luckily, the Ford Expedition does have blind spot view cameras, which you can activate your turn signal here, and it will activate the camera on that digital display in front of you and give you a really easy view out the side. Although I wish it wasn't quite as delayed. You can see there's about a 1 second delay in actually the camera system popping up on the screen itself. And then out the back, you could fold down the third and second row seats and the headrest via a button located up here near the sunglasses storage, and that will allow for better visibility out the rear, although I don't believe a digital camera mirror is available at all on the Expedition, so it's just the traditional mirror auto dimming. And because the Expedition and the Expedition Max are so physically long, it does look like you are looking through pretty much 10 feet behind you because you are of interior space. And I think a digital rear camera would definitely help with rearward visibility, as I'm starting to really appreciate that technology and really how functional it is on a daily basis. Now, in terms of ride quality inside of the Expedition, this is actually pretty good. Now, there's a little bit confusing as to the options and packaging on Ford's website in this specific vehicle that I'm in, because some of the packages do list a continuous dampening control suspension, which is obviously going to be an active damper, which uses some of the electronic signals to adjust the valving and things like that. But under the package online, it does state it has it, which means it's tied into the drive modes and just the overall technology and feature set it has. But I think all in all, the ride quality is pretty darn good. This one has the Performance Stealth Package with the upgraded wheel and tire. You have the red brake calipers for a little bit of additional appearance. And I really didn't have an issue with ride quality at all. I did about 141 or 142 mile road trip out on the interstate at about 75, 80 miles an hour. And it was very good. No issues out on the interstate. Around town over sizable bumps, no issues either. I think the only nitpick I have in terms of the suspension on this vehicle is the rear suspension at times will get this kind of bounce going, and it doesn't necessarily control itself right away. So you have to wait kind of a second or two and a couple bounces, and then it'll finally level out and stabilize itself. But you know, if you have a little bit of weight back there, maybe you're trailering or just have a lot of cargo, I don't think the ride quality or anything like that would misbehave. Inside the cabin, it's going to be a very quiet experience as well. This one does have some of the upgraded packages on it, although it's not fully loaded. It's not a Platinum Ultimate, which adds, you know, additional equipment above and beyond this one. But I believe it still does have some of the acoustic laminated front windshield, side glass, and even second row side glass, which helps with interior cabin noise levels. And along with that, this one does have the upgraded 22 speaker Bang & Olufsen premium audio system, which sounds okay, but it's not going to be my favorite audio system out there, as it does incorporate some of the speakers up into the dashboard. You have height channels up on the headlighter itself, and then of course you have more of the traditional mids and stuff inside all of the door panels. And I will say it is a noticeable upgrade, obviously, over the standard Bang & Olufsen system or even the lesser standard speakers from other manufacturers, but it's nowhere near the best sounding audio system I've heard. Maybe in a full-size SUV, I might give it that, because I've not experienced all of the upgraded systems in full-size vehicles, but just the fact that they offer one as not only loud, but also as quality and as impressive as this one, I think is pretty darn cool. The only issue I have with the audio system is it does get a little bit of boomy. It has a lot of bass from the factory, so I've had to dial in the EQ a little bit, bump up the highs. I would even bump down the lows a little bit, but you do have some additional adjustments for the Atmos and some of the other surround sound settings in the infotainment system if you want to dial it in to your personal preference. But going quickly back to ride quality here, going over my bumpy section of road, this thing is just as smooth as can be, as, you know, compliant as one would want a full-size SUV like this one, with that independent rear suspension. Again, I don't think a family with kiddos in the back, or you know, just a couple driving around this vehicle is going to be having an issue with the overall ride quality, and I find it quite impressive. So I think overall Ford did a pretty good job tuning the Expedition. I think they could just dial it in a little bit further to not get so much jounce or, you know, bounce out of the rear suspension. Now, moving on to more of the controversial bits about the interior, some of the seating comfort and things like that. The Expedition is certainly an interesting one. So obviously, diving right into what you see on camera, you have this large panoramic or half panoramic screen located all the way at the front of the dashboard, just inside the windshield glass itself. And you have a secondary infotainment system here, which controls a lot of your settings. That secondary screen it also controls. It does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which you can see is integrated and running right now, even though this vehicle does have Google built in via the Sync 4 software itself. So I actually have been a little bit disappointed by the power adjustments that are available in the Expedition, because you just have the standard power seat with two-way power lumbar for both the driver and the front passenger, and even vehicles such as the GM equivalents are offering four-way power lumbar at this price point and trim level. And it's just interesting to see how little adjustment you have in terms of the power seats. Now, of course, I'm 5'9", I do have spinal fusion, so headrests are often the main contributing factor to my discomfort in terms of seats. Now, I'm happy to say that Ford did something really nice and implemented the ratcheting type adjustable headrest, which, as you can see, will ratchet all the way forward like that, so you can basically adjust how much tension you want on the back of your head. And if I put it all the way back, it's not an issue whatsoever. So I have been able to get comfortable in that regard. But when it comes to just the general seat shape and the general seat comfort, it's not the most comfortable seat to me out there. It's about average. Over my hour and 10 minutes one way behind the wheel, was I uncomfortable? No. Was I overly comfortable? No. I would not prefer to take this vehicle on a 8-hour road trip behind the wheel. Let's just say that. You can get some more adjustable power seats with massage if you do option that on the Expedition. So that is something to keep in mind. all in all, I've had some, you know, compliments as far as the technology, but also some issues. I guess we'll just get right into the biggest elephant in the room, if you will, and that is this steering wheel. So because they implemented that screen up there, they've had to design the steering wheel a little bit around some of the other design that they went with the interior. So essentially what they did is to prevent blocking all of this screen in front of you, they've cut down the top of the steering wheel, they've cut down the bottom, and it's very oval to the point where it's probably the most oddly shaped or most oblong steering wheel that I've personally driven inside of a vehicle. Now, along with this is they've implemented some Toyota and Lexus touch type controls on the steering wheel, which integrate with that screen in front of you. So if you hover over or keep your finger on this actual quadrant or either quadrant of the steering wheel, it will show a preview of what button you're about to press on the steering wheel. And basically you have the Blue Cruise or the cruise control and some of the driver assist on the left side. You have the audio multimedia as well as the steering wheel adjustment and other adjustments via this system right there. And it's just a complicated and overly complex system. I don't like these touch type buttons because if, for example, you're using the audio multimedia and you just want to skip a track, well, if you hit it and press it like that, it will not recognize it because you have to hover over the button first and then kind of like long press very briefly and then remove your hand off the steering wheel if you want it to actually play the next track. And this is the case for volume and all the other commands that you can give it via the steering wheel. So I don't like the steering wheel buttons. They're not labeled, they're not backlit, they're not anything. They're just kind of blank, and then you have these two little previews on the left and right hand side for some cues as to what they do. But if you want to know all of the commands, you have to look up at that screen while you're hovering over the button. And all in all, I think the steering wheel is basically going to be the worst part about this interior of this vehicle. Looking around the rest of the interior, you have a decent amount of physical hard touch buttons. You have window controls, you have mirror controls, power folding mirrors. Then you have the drive mode, gear selection, volume over there, which is located pretty far away from the actual driver. So that is a little bit of a reach. But just turning around the corner here, you can see how I'm gripping the steering wheel. Whenever you're driving and doing certain maneuvers and, positioning your hands, I just was not able to get used to the steering wheel over the last 6 days with this vehicle. And what's funny about this is I did actually run into a brand new Ford Expedition Max owner at the Iowa tailgate. So in Iowa City, of course, for the Iowa game. And they said they actually started to get used to the steering wheel over about 2 weeks' time. Now, they came from actually a 2020 Yukon, which is a direct competitor to this. Obviously, they have refreshed that vehicle over the last several years. But he said, generally speaking, he's liked the Expedition, and the main reason they chose it was the fact that they like the amount of space and they like the overall comfort for some of their children and stuff that they haul around in terms of cargo. Obviously, they do a little bit of tailgating. So that is one of the reasons why they chose the Expedition for their next new vehicle. But myself personally, this interior is just not for me. I like them going a little bit outside of the norm to design something that might actually have a little bit of function while having a little bit of form. But I don't know if the steering wheel and all these displays and stuff is the right move as far as that goes. But it kind of is what it is. If you can get used to it, you like some of the implementation, then maybe it is going to be the right fit for you. But merging out here on the interstate, as you can see, I'm barely even giving this thing throttle, and we are already up to speed here. The high output EcoBoost V6 is certainly absolutely no joke, and one of the better attributes about the Expedition. Now, speaking of some of the other features, Blue Cruise available just popped up as we did merge onto the interstate. And this vehicle has Blue Cruise version 1.4, which unfortunately still does not support the automatic lane change function. So I have yet to experience a Ford or Lincoln product with the automatic lane change Blue Cruise 1.5 or newer, which is going to be found in some of their 2026 model year products. But unfortunately, the Expedition in this first model year did not receive that. Now, like I said, I did use Blue Cruise over about 142 miles. and it performed almost flawlessly. I only had about 1 or 2 instances where I had to take control of the steering wheel. It will alert you up there on the display to put your hands on the steering wheel, take control. It still has lane centering. It still has the adaptive cruise enabled. But then once it gets through this section of roadway, say construction zone, just like we're driving right now, it will revert back into Blue Cruise and automatically take back over and give you the hands-free signal up there on the dashboard. It does everything really well. It still has manual lane change assist, which means you have to indicate via the turn signal. It will automatically change lanes for you if it detects that it's able to do so. And it does it pretty quickly. So in terms of a driver assist function or just safety suite, I think this is, certainly adequate for this price point and what you would expect in a vehicle like this. And the fact that it is a hands-free system puts it slightly above much of the competition. However, when you consider the Yukon, the Tahoe, in which this vehicle competes with, you can get GM's Super Cruise system, which for 2026 has been updated to include lane centering on unmapped roadways, so hands-on lane centering, which is one of the benefits that Blue Cruise and some of the other systems had over Super Cruise. However, that difference is now removed, and the two systems are much closer in terms of overall performance. However, I think I would prefer GM's Super Cruise over Blue Cruise on long distance road trips because it has automatic lane change and can basically handle all of the assist functions on those map roadways. It's just a matter of how often you would have to be taking over manual control because it loses mapping, it doesn't know the roadway that you're on, etc. That would be the key differentiating factor between Blue Cruise and Super Cruise. However, they definitely have some differences in terms of subscription model and how much each system costs. You can do an upfront payment for Ford if you want to pay for it at the time of purchase. You can do a 3-year trial, I believe. You can even do month to month, I believe, with the Ford, where on the GM side of things, it's a 3-year subscription from the factory. And then after that, you do have to pay in some of their intervals that they do offer. So each company is doing it just a little bit differently. And one of the biggest things to note is that the hardware, I believe, is standard on every Expedition to do it. However, you have to get a select trim level and then option that hardware on the GM side of things because it's not standard on every single trim. So you have to get things like, I think, an RST or higher with the optional package instead of just, coming standard and enabling the service after the time of sale if you want to use it. But here, going through this construction zone at roughly 60 miles an hour, the Expedition's pretty quiet on the interior, although it's not whisper quiet. You can hear a little bit of wind noise coming through. It's not a completely calm day. There's a little bit of a breeze going on. Road noise is good until you hit certain pavement types or grading in the roadway. The tires will transmit a little bit of the road noise through into the cabin. But once you have that audio system playing with the surround sound function on, it drowns it out with no issues. And it gets crazy loud if you want to do it, although it will start to distort at those higher levels. In terms of the second and third row of the Expedition, this is where things start to get a little bit puzzling to me. So the vehicle that we're in is a Platinum with that Stealth Performance package, just around $84,000, including destination. So not fully loaded, but not a basic one either. These can exceed well over $90,000 with every option package checked in the Platinum, King Ranch, or even the Tremor. And the full-size SUV segment, at least in the mainstream brands, seems to be lacking behind the mid-size 3-row segment when it comes to what features and options that you might find inside of the vehicle. Now, I'm saying this because the mid-size 3-row segment, of course, if you've been following my content with the new Hyundai Palisade, that vehicle was already extremely impressive in what it had to offer in the second and third rows in terms of features and amenity. Heated ventilated second row seats, now fully power captain chairs are available. You have heated third row seats, power sliding third row seats. You have all these features and benefits back there. And then you get into the full-size segment. Until you get to the luxury side of things, you're missing out or not getting a lot of those features. So you only have heated second row captain chairs in this vehicle. I'm not sure ventilated captain chairs are even available. You have power third row seats with recline adjustment, but no power sliding. So you just are missing out some of those neat little features that your kids might find useful back there, whether it's winter, summer, whatever it might be. But the big aspect that you're gaining with the full size is obviously going to be the physical footprint and the physical size in terms of interior space. And that's something that the Expedition does extremely well. This one's not even the max with the longer wheelbase and the longer interior, third row space. But even behind the second row seats with them all the way back, I wasn't even touching the back seat or the backrest of the second row. So I had plenty of legroom. The seat bottom sits up plenty high, so you have plenty of thigh and leg support. You can sit comfortably for hours back there in any row inside of this vehicle. And I think that is where you do make the trade-off, is you're paying a price premium for a full-size SUV. You're not going to be getting all the features and options as a equivalent fully loaded mid-size 3-row, which is still very spacious, still very comfortable, but maybe not so much for adults or longer distances, depending on how much stuff, pets, people you're moving. Because personally, I think I would probably stick with a mid-size 3-row, one of the larger options that's nicer on the interior, has more of those amenities in the second and third rows if you're using them all the time. But if you find you're not using them all the time, maybe you would be able to sacrifice some of that for just more physical space. Trailering and towing capacity, this vehicle can tow much more than that of the midsize. And, you are sacrificing fuel economy at the same time. Over my last 218 miles, you can see I've been averaging 16.1 mpg according to the computer. Now, on the interstate at 75 plus miles an hour, I was getting about 19.5 mpg, which is still shy of the 22 mpg that this vehicle is rated at, but it's at least respectable, I think, for the physical size and the speeds I was traveling. So all in all, I think in terms of the fuel economy and window sticker rating, I think the Expedition will get close. Although I think in town, depending on how you drive this vehicle, you will be lucky to see about 15 or 16 mpg. I like this power sliding center console. You have a little bit of additional storage underneath there. It's all hidden. That's a cool little feature. Cup holders are massive. You have the panoramic power sunroof, which is very cool. And you got the split power tailgate out back, which I don't really think is a benefit or a con to me. I think I'm kind of neutral on it. It works well. It has both power hatch for the upper section and the lower section. You have some adjustments you can make on the actual system settings for that. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of my general conclusion on the Ford Expedition, the interior layout's just not my preference in terms of an SUV. And I think a lot of that boils down to the steering wheel and this additional screen in front of me. Does it have a lot of cool functions? Like you can go into the settings here, you can change that little portion in the middle. You can have your fuel economy, you can have different gauges up there, you can have your media playing. You have even an off-road pages right there. Is that something that I would trade off for a wonky steering wheel buttons, and just a unique design on the inside? No. I think I prefer a more traditional layout in terms of, maybe a Chevy Tahoe or GMC Yukon, more buttons, screen where you expect it, and a regular steering wheel, because at the end of the day, I think the steering wheel contributes to a little bit of my driver's seat discomfort, because if you're resting your hand here, you're turning it, the steering ratio in this seems like it's a little bit long and takes a lot of rotations to get the actual steering to turn, the amount you would expect it. Let me know what you guys think of this Ford Expedition down in the comment section below. If you guys enjoyed this video and or found it helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I want to give a huge thanks to Ford for sending this vehicle out for me to test and review. Certainly an interesting one. I knew that going into this year at the Chicago Auto Show, but after spending some time with it behind the wheel, probably not going to be my first pick if I were to purchase one of the full-size mainstream SUVs in this segment. But always nice to get an opinion and feel for what some of these vehicles have to offer. But like I said, let me know your thoughts on this vehicle down in the comment section below. And as always, I hope to see you guys in the next one.